Today's topic is going to be a bit awkward and maybe a little bit controversial, depending on which side you fall. Someone said to me once that they love going to work because of the social aspect. I found that a bit suspect. I don't mean to offend anybody, but my first instinct, not gonna lie, was what are you lacking in your personal life that you need to go to work in order to have that filled? And I'm not hating on anyone or judging anyone because, we've all had those moments where we've been alone in our life. We haven't had much going on. But to think your coworkers are actually your friends, that's a little bit scary to me. So when I started to think about it a little bit more deeply, I was like, okay, I suppose that's kind of the natural next step. You work together, you vibe, you grab lunch, boom, we're close now. We talk about stuff, talk about family, all that. And there was a really long time early in my career where I actually subscribed to it myself. We're on a friendly wavelength. That means you got my back. And whatever happens, we're cool. Like, we're going to get through it together. You're going to help me out. Yeah, it didn't work that way. Many occasions, actually, it didn't work that way. Because honestly, even though we want to have a team that's connected and feel like we belong and work with people who are supportive and fun to be around, the truth is actually makes work harder, not any easier when you blur those lines. Okay, so when you start saying yes when you mean no, you start to cover for people because they're your friends. You start to slack on your work because you're too busy gossiping or you're too busy listening to this person complain about whatever. You pick up extra tasks just to help out, and you don't advocate for yourself because you don't want to hurt anyone else's feelings in the team because we're all friends and the manager will just pick the best person. Being loyal to a fault, basically, to your own detriment. It feels like love and camaraderie, but mostly it's convenient. When I was in a position where I would overinvest in my workplace friendships, not like even, oh, let's just go get a cup of coffee. Like, I meant all in. I was covering for their mistakes. I was staying late because they needed the help. I was supporting people. I was even talking about my personal stuff with coworkers, thinking that it made us closer and more of a team. And I didn't want to seem cold or distant, and I wanted to be liked. I wanted to have that sense of connection with my team members, right? And it felt good. It felt like a community. But over time, it started to drain me because they were asking so many personal questions. And there were times when I was thrown under the bus when they were questioned about a mistake they made or something not being done properly. And where I had to step up and admit that they're not my friends, that they don't actually have my back, and that they need to work for paying their bills too. And if they're up for a promotion or they're in line for a raise and I'm in the way, I'm not their friend anymore. You can care about your coworkers without sacrificing yourself and your integrity and everything that you want out of the job. You can be kind, you can be supportive, and you can collaborate like a pro, but you need to protect your time. You need to protect your energy, and you definitely need to set boundaries and enforce them. Big moment for me was when I finally admitted none of these people are going to be here when I leave, because I had left a few jobs and people that I thought were my besties at the job, never heard from them again. And in fact, some of them even went on social media and started talking crap about me as if we weren't close and friendly when I worked there. Because these people are in the same situation that you are. If you think you're in this position when you have work friends, I would ask you to please think about, if you had met these people outside of work, would you still tell them as much about yourself that you do? The truth is, the reciprocity in these situations is almost non-existent. You can't let that line be blurred. It happens so much more often than we want to admit. In fact, I found out very vividly and harshly that the one person who wants to be everyone's friend is probably the person you should keep as far away from you as possible, because they're definitely not looking to be everybody's friend. It's not about being rude. It's not about being disrespectful in any way. And it's not about not putting in a team effort. They're not enemies. They're just not your friends. And they're not your emotional support system, especially if something is going on at work. I had to remind myself that I can't overextend. I had to shift my mindset about work friends being work friends and not real life friends. You have to protect your loyalty, your growth, your peace, your mental clarity. You're in this forced environment. Those friendships just don't last because they're forced. It's a forced relationship, just like your relationship with your manager and the company overall. And people will use you and abuse you because they need their jobs. I'm sure you're working because you need your job. Most people are not in a position where they can just pick and choose whatever job they want or whatever work they want to do because they have bills to pay, just like everybody else, right? So it's not about not being a team player, and it's not about not doing your best while you're at work. It's about taking a pause before you volunteer. It's about making sure your personal life is separate from your professional life. Now I work for myself, but before I left my last couple jobs, none of my coworkers even knew my kid's name or my partner's name. You don't have to be that extreme per se. You can find your own boundary based on what you're comfortable with. But just make sure you realize that whatever information you give them could be used against you, and most likely will be if given the opportunity. Not even to be nefarious on their side, but they're in survival mode too. You have to protect yourself. You have to protect your peace. And you can be called cold. You can be called not a team player. I even had a write-up and was sent to HR because even though I was doing my job per the manager's description perfectly, I didn't have the right mindset for the culture. I didn't want to participate in the birthday celebrations and the pints after work hours and the mindless banter that I could care less about. So I was actually brought into HR to have a discussion about my attitude because I didn't want to be a part of any of that because I didn't think it was worth it, my time. I just didn't want to participate. And that wasn't the culture that manager wanted to create for their department. They saw it as an insult, whereas I saw it as protecting my peace and my loved one's privacy. Your well-being is not up for negotiation. Work is not a family. Your coworkers aren't your therapists, and they're not gonna be there when the chips are down. If they are, then you are very lucky you have found some really amazing people. But most of the time, it is not the case. We need to set our boundaries with our coworkers. We need to enforce them. And we need to stand strong even when you're in HR and a manager is telling you that you're not quite fitting in with the culture because you have boundaries. Because that means they want to know personally what's going on with your life so that they can use that as leverage against you when they need it. That just didn't sit well with me. So I was done with that place. You might have a different boundary, but make sure you find one that works for you. Set your boundaries and enforce them with your coworkers so that you can own your life without losing yourself in the process. Make work work for you and your life and no one else's.